WZBN TV News. We've got you covered.
From the monument to Mercer County's soldiers and sailors of the Civil War in Trenton's Cadwalader Park, hello, and welcome to this WZBN Moment in Time special on the 150th anniversary of the Civil War. I'm Matt Metcalf. It was the bloodiest war in American history. 620,000 soldiers died, 6,300 from New Jersey. For decades, tensions had been building over the issue of states' rights, the ability for state laws to trump federal law. When Abraham Lincoln was elected president, the country was set for war, and Lincoln knew it. So he made a stop in Trenton to shore up support in New Jersey. Lincoln was not at home in Mercer County, nor New Jersey. Many students at Princeton were the sons of rich Southern planters. New Jersey's southern counties, several of which fall below the Mason-Dixon line, traded actively with southern states threatening secession. The Daily True American, one of Trenton's two newspapers, continually criticized Lincoln's politics. One editorial reads, "The remarks made by Mr. Lincoln will be found on perusal to be of the same unmeaning, non-committal character as those delivered by him in other places." Though he won Mercer County in 1860, Lincoln lost the popular vote in the state and split the electoral votes, with Stephen Douglas receiving 3 and Lincoln 4, which is why Lincoln's visit to Trenton was so important. He needed New Jersey for the war many considered inevitable and eagerly accepted Governor Olden's invitation to appear. Greeted at the American House Hotel by Mayor Franklin Mills, President-elect Lincoln received world-class treatment. Riding through flag-lined streets in a special carriage called a barouche, he arrived at the State House to address both the General Assembly and Senate. But even the morning of his visit, partisan members of the New Jersey Assembly offered resolutions like this, that when this meeting shall have seen Abraham Lincoln, they will have seen the ugliest man in the country. His words would inspire more than his looks. To the Senate, he referred longingly to the principles of the Battle of Trenton and the Revolution. He told the Assembly, to preserve our nation, it may be necessary to put the foot down firmly. Thunderous applause and cheers could be heard from State Street. Before the battle, mother. Returning to the Trenton House Hotel, then at Warren and Hanover, he spoke briefly to citizens from the second-floor balcony before leaving for Philadelphia. A whirlwind 6 hours in Trenton that for the time being ensured our state's support in building and saving a nation. The wagon loads of residents from Hamilton Square, Hightstown, and Pennington all left Trenton that day, satisfied by what they'd seen and heard. Lincoln's visit did little to calm nerves on the campus of the College of New Jersey, what we know today as Princeton University. The school was nearly a casualty of war.
This was a very important moment in that time, the election of 1860, which was a four-way race that split the nation. This is the Bell-Breckinridge Club, which supported Bell and Breckinridge, who both said they united to defeat Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln won the race, as you can see in this November 9th issue of the Princeton Press of 1860. For college students of the times, politics were close to their hearts. These 3 students were suspended from Princeton after President McLean said the college did not permit public expression of sympathy for those who were destroying the Union. Now here's a Princeton Cricket Club in 1862. The young man in plaid pants, fourth from the left, is Samuel Huey. He was one of the 3 students sent home in 61 for dousing a pro-secession fellow student under the college pump. That student was Francis Dubois of the class of 1863. He was drenched for his support of secession from the Union. You can see that national politics was a hot-button issue and discussion topic for many students. Here in William Potter's diary, he describes the pump incident during which students were suspended on September 12th of 1861.
Even before the first shots were fired on Fort Sumter, troops were already mobilizing here in Mercer County. Plans were underway to turn the Trenton area into a massive training ground. It was in April 1861 that the first bricks were blown off Fort Sumter. To the people of New Jersey, a state lukewarm to Abraham Lincoln's presidency, secession was one thing. Firing on our own forts and raising an alien flag above them, entirely another. broadside posters like these began to go up around town, recruiting able-bodied men to answer President Lincoln's call for 75,000 soldiers from every state to defend Washington. New Jersey Guard Company A would be the first in the country to get there. Company A had been training since November, right after Lincoln's election, when it was clear military action might be unavoidable. They were put to work immediately. Artwork from early 1861, kept at the National Archives, shows New Jersey troops clearing roads and land to build a fort. Back home, the pulse of patriotism was palpable. The Stars and Stripes flew high above downtown on Green Street, which we know today as Broad. Lines formed at the recruiting office as a crush of men responded to the posters. Men looking for adventure and the stability of a military pension. It became clear that the training ground at the state arsenal near the prison would be nowhere near big enough to handle the influx. So they sought out space in then rural Hamilton Township near the Pond Run and Sandtown Road, what we know today as Hamilton Avenue on Charles Skirm's farm. Here, Camp Olden came into its own. For more than a year, volunteer regiments came to drill under the watchful eye of officers. In all, almost 9,000 soldiers learned the basics during the 1 year Camp Olden was open. Today, their efforts and their sacrifices are honored by the Camp Olden Civil War Roundtable Museum in Veterans Park, and at the site where so many men prepared for a war that would change our history forever.
Soldiers from Mercer County served in defense of the nation's capital and on the battlefields at places like Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Now, the bonds these men formed in battle started at Trenton's training camps. And we have a better idea of what life was like in those training camps thanks to some letters written by soldiers at Camp Olden.
Tens of thousands of volunteers poured into Trenton after posters like these went up around the state. The hustle and bustle turned the town upside down. Almost 9,000 soldiers mustered in the first year alone at Camp Olden in Hamilton Township. 6 camps would be set up in Mercer County during the war, all near the city. 2 were located in South Trenton. There was Camp Bayard, west of South Broad Street and south of Cass. The Trenton State Prison grounds played host to Camp Perrine. Camp Halstead was located on the outskirts of town at Moses's Woods, back when West Hanover and Passaic was forest. There was also a Camp Parker and a Camp Delaware built somewhere nearby, but those records have been lost. In the early days, war was almost fun. Entire families came to camp, moving freely about the training grounds. Here, they set up a lunch for their loved ones outside the Clinton Street Railroad Station. But when volunteers were asked for 3 years instead of 3 months, the tone changed. Accounts from the time indicate many men didn't know the basics and others simply were not physically up to life in the military. Those that did stay had their work cut out for them. Some men had weeks to learn it all. One group out of Camp Olden had 1 day.
We're tenting tonight on the old campground.
Men paired up and slept on the ground in simple pup tents, sheets of cloth buttoned together with a pole holding up the center. Bugles would sound at sunrise. Sometimes you might get up even earlier. It was here that men got their first taste of field rations like hardtack, a 3x3 cracker, easy to make but hard to eat. In your knapsack, you might carry a canteen, a drinking cup, or a razor.
To see the dawn of peace.
Often the first assignment at camp was guard duty. Soldier Edward McManus writes of his time at Camp Olden that guard duty was 2 hours on, 2 hours off for 24 hours, then 24 hours off, and repeat. Off hours, you might have a little fun, smoking a pipe by the campfire or tossing your buddies in a blanket. Many wrote letters to their loved ones, not knowing if it would be their last. After the war, even as their numbers dwindled, survivors of the Grand Army of the Republic would reunite, drawn together by the bloodiest war in American history. shared experiences, and shared commitment to preserving the Union for the next generation. Coming up, rescued from recycling, a hero nearly forgotten, Trenton Patriots and their 12-ton triumph. Plus, flying the flag, the state's effort to set the standard, saving these symbols of the Civil War. And later,
we have to overcome to become the best that we can be every day. And that's what I talk to my young people about.
One man's journey to healing through history, when this WZBN Moment in Time special continues. WZBN's Moment in Time, brought to you by Roma Bank, your mortgage and home equity specialists.
Daytime, nighttime, log on to RomaBank.com. Roma Bank is growing strong. This is where you belong. Roma Bank, 4 generations of strength, loyalty, wisdom, and vision. Daytime, nighttime, log on to RomaBank.com. RomaBank.com.
In today's market, it's important to know who you're dealing with when buying a new car. Customers have been trusting us for over 65 years. So when we say we have the largest inventory in Mercer County, we really do. And when we say customers are our #1 priority, we really are. And when we make our customers a promise, we keep it. We will never lose a sale because of price, and that's a promise you can count on. At Coleman Buick GMC Cadillac, right next to the Quaker Bridge Mall.
Mercer County Technical School's Health Science Academy, a 4-year high school for goal-oriented students interested in medical and healthcare careers. Learn about all of the programs offered at MCTS on January 5th at 6 p.m. at the Assenpink Center. Applications for the Health Science Academy for current 8th graders are due January 20th.
Cedar Garden's newly renovated ballroom. For groups from 50 to 1,000, we cater your special event with a personal touch. Cedar Garden Banquets, Cedar Gardens Liquors, and the Cedar Pub, all on Route 33 in Hamilton.
Prepare for a career in the fashion industry. Mercer County Community College offers a new program in fashion and apparel design at the James Kearney campus.
When war between the states broke out, New Jersey sent 5 artillery batteries, 3 cavalry units, and 4 infantry regiments with whatever outdated weapons they could find. In the next 4 years, soldiers from our area would see major changes in military strategy and technology, right down to the guns they fired. The 4th New Jersey Infantry assembled at Camp Olden in Mercer County in August 1861. 909 men volunteered, and they would fight and die on the battlefields of Bull Run and Malvern Hill. The Civil War was the most deadly war in American history, and the reasons for that fascinate collectors like John Beretta.
The mechanics of this and how somebody would develop something like this is just phenomenal.
Beretta's Civil War collection includes more than 20 weapons that are a virtual timeline of muskets used during the Civil War era. Some are older muzzle loaders, like this Danzig. Many of those guns utilize flintlock technology. You'd cock a lock with a piece of flint on the other side. Pulling the trigger would then drop the lock and create a spark that would fire the gun. By the late 1850s, new percussion cap technology made the firing more efficient and more deadly. The Springfield Model 1861 was the most widely used Army weapon during the Civil War. This version of the 1861 was produced by Hodge and Burton right here at the Trenton Locomotive and Machine Company. It was a rifled musket, meaning that the barrel had a groove on the inside. That forced the ball to spin and made it travel farther, faster. No longer could armies stand just a few hundred yards from each other and fire without massive casualties. 2 years after the start of the war, Fort Sumter was still in Confederate hands, an insult to the Union cause. The fort became a symbol of the rebellion, and in 1863, Union forces began a secret initiative to win it back. And that's when Trenton's Swamp Angel was called into action.
God save the South! God save the South!
Charleston, South Carolina, cradle of the Confederacy. Taking Fort Sumter in 1861 was the first act of war. 2 years later, hundreds of thousands of men had died, and the Confederate flag still flew. Union leaders wanted Fort Sumter back for strategy and symbolism and sent General Quincy Gilmore to do it. Using a small strip of land they had captured off Morris Island, just 5 miles from Charleston, Gilmore built a kind of military structure never seen before. A frame of logs and sandbags in the marsh as tall as 3 men. Atop that structure, a 16,500-pound menace, a cannon the soldiers would christen the Swamp Angel. On August 22, 1863, she was ready for battle. The day before, soldiers again tried something new, using a compass to guide her line of fire towards St. Michael's Church downtown. And at 1:30 in the morning, the Swamp Angel unleashed 3 volleys into the dark of night that would terrorize residents of Charleston for months. The assault continued in the days to come. Swamp Angel fired another 20 times, including the first poison gas shell ever fired into a city.
God save the South.
The last shell blew the gun apart, tossing it forward off its stand. The massive crack that can still be seen today near her vent assured she would never fire again. The gun that terrorized Charleston for months was no more. Following the war, employees for the Trenton Iron Company, operating where Kathmandu is today, found her among iron scrap waiting to be recycled. She was put up on a granite base at the corner of North Clinton and Perry Street. 50 years ago this week, she was moved to Cadwallader Park, where she remains today. A striking symbol of some Trentonians' pride in the Union cause, as well as the devastating impact of the war between the states.
On the ground during the chaos of battle in those days, soldiers would look to their company's flag to figure out where the group was moving, while several of those New Jersey regimental flags have been preserved and are now on display at the State Archives in Trenton.
For more than 100 years, the flags stood proudly in cases attached to their standards, just as they'd been carried into battle. But it was the march of time that took a toll. The colors were fading, the fabrics being pulled apart. So in 2000, the Department of State built special flat cases to preserve these important symbols. The museum's collection includes more than 50 Civil War flags, among them a Confederate flag captured in battle.
What is neat about this set of flags is one of the 5 is a captured Confederate flag, and it's unusual for a northern state to still be holding Confederate flags that were captured in the Civil War 150 years ago.
Their rotating exhibit can be seen at the State Archives building at 225 West State Street in Trenton, weekdays from 9 to 5. Still ahead, just when did slavery end in our area? Much later than you might think. Plus, the Underground Railroad in New Jersey and the local home that funneled escaped slaves to freedom.
If your car makes noise, come see the boys at Puccello's Custom Exhaust, 1158 South Olden Avenue. Complete exhaust systems for domestic and foreign cars, trucks, RVs, and hot rods at a low cost. Puccello's is your one-stop custom exhaust, 588-9780.
My husband and I have always been used car people, and now we're looking for a used car for our daughter. Something practical, not too expensive, and of course, knowing she'll be out late at night, it needs to be safe and reliable.
Our huge selection of certified used vehicles is what brought them to Coleman.
Not only is our daughter happy with her choice, my husband and I will sleep better, knowing she's safe on the roads.
Don't you just love happy endings? You can count on Coleman Buick GMC Cadillac right next to the Quaker Bridge Mall.
When you look at the big picture of Civil War politics, the issue of states' rights was like a pool of gasoline. Slavery was the spark that set it on fire. New Jersey had spent years avoiding the issue. To some, it was an issue of property rights. To others, it was an issue of human rights.
No matter where you go in Mercer County, at one time, slaves worked the land. Africans forcibly brought to America, tilling the same land where we grow our crops today. Malin Stacy, who built the first grist mill on the Assunpink Creek where Mill Hill Park is today, owned slaves. So did the city's namesake, William Trent. And records show slaves working on farms near Princeton and in Hopewell Township by the early 1700s. These records, though, tell little of the conditions in which these men and women lived. It's telling that many tried to escape. Wilson Hunt advertised in the newspaper in 1766, hoping someone would catch his slave, Bood, who fled the Hunt farm in Maidenhead, what we know today as Lawrenceville. 15-year-old Jack ran away from his master in Trenton in 1781, supposedly to escape to the British, who'd promised some slaves freedom. Even after the Revolution, the buying and selling of humans was a part of local culture. The Trenton True American newspaper advertised slaves for sale in 1801. Quakers fought to bring the slave trade to an end, helping get a law passed in 1804 that gave men born after that date their freedom at age 25 and women at age 21. Several prominent local landowners manumitted or freed their slaves even earlier. That did little, though, to stop the violence. Attacks against enslaved individuals were rarely reported, but an 1828 attack by 14-year-old James Guild, who used this farm tool to kill his mistress in Hopewell, made front-page news. He was publicly hanged. By 1840, there were 22 slaves living in Mercer County. By 1850, there were just 6. Many more, however, were still living with their former masters. An 1846 New Jersey law abolished slavery, but required these freed people to live as apprentices with their owners for life. No slave in New Jersey was truly set free until the passage of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. From the banks of the Stony Brook to the falls of the Delaware, slavery in the capital region was a reality. Their emancipation of freedom to both the men and women who toiled and those who kept them in torment.
Area citizens actively campaigned at the State House for the passage of laws that would not only eliminate the slave trade, but prohibit the ownership of people as property. In the meantime, a coalition of local folks, both black and white, was secretly helping New Jersey slaves flee to freedom. This Underground Railroad made a stop in the tiny town of Crosswicks in Hamilton Township.
At a time when the punishment for harboring slaves in this county was death by hanging, Enoch Middleton, the owner of this property in the 1840s, used this land to offer slaves safe lodging and food. By doing this, he played a key role in the Underground Railroad.
It involved, private dwellings, churches, outbuildings, barns. So it went from Chesterfield Township, Burlington County that way, into Hamilton. So it continued along Hamilton.
From Hamilton, runaway slaves would continue on to northern New Jersey, New England, or even Canada. The structure of his property has not changed much since the Civil War. It looked pretty much the same way it does today. But what is not visible from the outside are all the secret hiding spaces in those barns out back. The interior of these barns have fake panels, fake walls with hidden rooms behind them. Underneath the staircase here is a hole where slaves could hide. There were also peepholes in the wood panels to allow them to see if someone was coming. But despite all these precautions, Enoch Middleton almost got caught once.
Authorities across the creek were planning a raid because they were very suspicious over time of the Middleton and Enoch and the Middleton house being involved in the Underground Railroad. So luckily they were tipped off by someone from Crosswicks who knew of the planning. And so they tipped them off, and that very night they managed to smuggle the slaves out. And so when the authorities came the next day with a whole crew of soldiers, police, etc., ready to arrest Enoch Middleton and discover these slaves, they were gone.
That close run-in with the law did not scare Enoch Middleton off from continuing to help slaves escape. He was, of course, only one among many who participated in the Underground Railroad.
Many chose to run from the horrors of enslavement, while others faced it head-on. After the Emancipation Proclamation, men of color like Abram Henry of Trenton wanted to enlist. But Henry had to go to Philadelphia to do so because New Jersey never created a company of colored soldiers. So nearly a century and a half later, a Mercer County man took it upon himself to to organize one to honor those men of color who fought in a very personal fight for freedom.
I seen a piece of paper, literature flyer, that says 3rd Regiment United States Colored Troops will be at Grissom Street in Philadelphia at the Grand Army of the Republic. And I said, I am going to see that. There's no way that I will not be down there to see these people. And that day, I joined the 3rd Regiment United States Colored Troops. Since that time, we have been from Massachusetts to Florida, St. Louis, Missouri, all over this country. We have 2 volumes here in our organization that has 208,000 names of the United States colored troops that served in the American Civil War. And it gets fascinating because the more you learn about this Civil War, the more exciting it becomes. And as I got involved in the Civil War and became somewhat infamous, I would say, to a lot of people, and they ask why you do it. It's a healing process. What has to happen? The wound of hate and bigotry and racism is so deep in America that we're going to have to open this wound up, clear it out, and let it heal. And that's what we have to do. And that's what we do every time that we go out into the field and touch another European or another immigrant not born here. See, but everything is decisions, and we are constantly making decisions. We have to overcome to become the best that we can be every day. And that's what I talk to my young people about. I have a room in the Civil War Museum out in Hamilton Township, and I'm proud of that. My collection's there. And me, I'm the person standing in the spotlight or in the front of the camera, but it's not about me at all. It's about the group of people that I serve. And when you look at service, to whom much is given, much is required.
Next, the memorial honoring our Civil War veterans. We'll take you there. And the men of Mercer who proved their mettle and received America's highest award for it.
Are you paying more and more for cable and enjoying it less and less? Upgrade to Verizon Fios at our best price online. Just $79.99 a month for 2 years with a 2-year agreement. This holiday deal is only for a limited time. So hurry, get Fios at this great price. Act now and we'll add a multi-room DVR free for life as long as you keep a triple play bundle at your current address. Go to Verizon.com/great deal. Fios, a network ahead.
Choose First Choice Bank for the big bank services you expect with the friendly neighborhood service you value. Visit us in Lawrenceville, Hamilton, Robbinsville, Mercerville, or East Windsor.
Welcome back. Multiple Mercer County servicemen distinguished themselves above and beyond the call of duty and received national recognition.
At 16 years old, John Poynton Beach enlisted in the 4th New Jersey Infantry. On May 12, 1864, he was a hero on one of the bloodiest days of the Civil War at the Battle of Spotsville, Virginia. Only 8 of the 600 men in his infantry survived the battle. John Poynton Beach is said to have packed and fired an unmanned cannon by himself, firing off countless rounds at the enemy to fight them off. This heroic act earned him a Congressional Medal of Honor. Mercer County resident Evan Morrison Woodward also received this highest honor for his acts during the Civil War. Woodward joined the Pennsylvania Reserves to fight in this controversial fight for Fredericksburg, Virginia. When he saw Confederate soldiers attack many of his fellow men from behind, he waved his hat into the air and gathered over 20 men to help in halting the enemy's advance. It's said that Woodward was hit or grazed by 13 bullets flying at him.
But no monument to the fallen of the Civil War stands as tall as the Soldiers and Sailors Monument here in Trenton's Cadwallader Park. The monument stands as a steadfast reminder of their sacrifice. The column features a capital of unfurling acanthus leaves, eagles, and shields bearing the stars and stripes, supporting a single bronze figure of a Civil War color guard. And that's where we leave you. I'm Matt Metcalf. Thanks for watching.